apertures and this sort of like moody kind of hidden look. It was hard figuring out the logic of this because they're massive ships and massive transport vehicles, yet they're supposed to be hiding in the forest. So we eventually came up with the idea they're kind of in this small clearing, and that's what you kind of see there.
Challenges in doing a movie like this is that you want to have simultaneity in terms of the storytelling, in terms of establishing an environment, moving the plot along, and then making each shot or scene interesting in itself. We're establishing the flora and fauna on the environment, the threat of the Trade Federation, and then what we're really doing in this scene is introducing a new character, which becomes a key character later on. The challenge always in writing scenes like this is you got to try to get all these things to happen at once in the same scene. You can't just have a scene that does one thing, like say establish a character. You also have to keep the plot moving, and the fact that this attack is going on, and you also have to begin to introduce people into this environment, into this planet.
Star Wars. We've got speeder bikes going and shooting, something like the speeder bikes, and the laser swords are being fought, and the explosions are going off. And when John Knoll saw that, he said, "Looks like it's out of the Star Wars films." And I said, "Yeah, that's the idea."
Actually, one of my favorite scenes, especially in terms of Jar Jar. I mean, this is the scene where you really were able to take a digital character and make him photorealistic and have him interact with the live actors in a way that seemed believable. It's one of the first scenes we actually did, and I think it's one of the best.
Graphics, you want to make sure that it has all the weight and believability of a real object moving through a three-dimensional space, because you're looking at Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor, and you're able to instantaneously compare Jar Jar's physicality to the human's physicality.
These were particularly hard shots. These shots of Jar Jar standing there, again, marrying him into the background and getting the leaf effects on his head, so you get the sunlight and the shadowing on him. And here everybody is sort of a little on the moist side because it must have been pretty warm out there when they shot it, so we have Jar Jar even a little perspiring like the actors are.
Always pleasing that about 10 minutes into the film, we have a quiet scene. The way these films are designed, they often start out with a chase, but it's also very good then to pull back somewhere early in the movie and have a section of things that are very quiet without music.
What got me interested in the show really were these sequences. I remember going up to the ranch and George showed me the artwork that had been done for it and described it, and just thinking, that sounds really great. I really want to work on the show.
Again, one of these amazing shots that just sent shudders throughout the whole screening room when we were all sitting watching it. It was one of the first shots that Dennis Muren delivered, and it was so complicated, so difficult to do. Everybody was so frustrated after weeks and weeks of trying to get this shot right, and then to finally see it in all its kind of breathtaking glory was just a real pivotal point for all of us.
One of the tricky things in the Star Wars saga is to come up with new environments. Each film has 3 or 4 new environments, and it's a struggle in each film to sort of come up with something that you can use to tell the story with and isn't so bizarre or out there that you can't, doesn't fit into the context of the universe I've created, but at the same time gives you a different visual experience in each movie.
Here you can see the Gungans are wary of the Jedi and they move away. Tarpelson comes in and we find out that Jar Jar's in trouble. Directing Jar Jar was a challenge because I had about 15 animators animating him at any given time. Although the direction remains the same, which is Jar Jar's confused in this scene, doesn't know what's going on, or Jar Jar's trying to be helpful and doesn't know what he's doing. If you think of 15 different people, they each bring a slightly different bit of themselves to the character. And as a director, you need to make sure that you're pulling one cohesive performance out of them. Same thing here with Boss Nass. I had a much smaller team working on the boss, about 5 animators working on him in total. The thought there was that you wouldn't want to have to teach an entire team. I had about 45 animators working with me. You don't want to teach every single animator every single character. There's going to be people who are stronger at dialogue and people who are stronger at action or performance. And you try and cast your animators like you would cast your actors or your voice talent.
Sets, the background sets that you're seeing here that the CG characters are standing on are models. Not very big. I think the whole miniature set was probably only about 4 or 5 feet across. And shot against blue, and then all the bubbles in the background are computer graphic generated and put it back there to look like they're far, far in the distance. See all the fish swimming around there? I think you're seeing the same few fish over and over and over again. But we make them dark, we make them light, we have them going to the left and right and left, have them go a little faster and slower, and really can't tell the difference. And it fills the frame up. It gives you a good sense of being, of having water out there, which is what we had to accomplish. And the design for this set, from our point of view, because we were creating all the ribbing and everything that you see, we sort of had to figure out, well, what was it made out of? Is it manufactured by them? Is it built in some way? And what we came up with is it was actually grown, which is why everything is sort of in curves and all. It looks very organic, that they would have found some way to have grown this building. And within it, then they can have their air, but they can be grown like on the bottom of the ocean, and then they can go in them and occupy them and use them.
Thematic devices here is that these two cultures come together and join forces and become friends and are treated as equals. Where in the beginning of the film, they basically don't want to talk to each other. They don't want to have anything to do with each other. Each one is a sort of insular society. This is one of my favorite scenes because it's all digital characters except for the two humans. I think it came off very well in terms of the characters and the humor, and you just don't get this strong sense that you're in an animated film. You feel you're in a real place. In essence, you're watching, Roger Rabbit in Toonville. It just doesn't look like it.
Sub coming out of one of the membranes. This is a computer graphic sub, all computer graphic city here. And this is a design of a shot that I used to do even back in Empire Strikes Back, starting with, in that case, it was the Falcon close to the camera flying off in the distance through the asteroid field. And I just really like doing those shots in profile. And I did manage to get one into this show too, with the sub close to the camera and flying off in the distance, and then going down into this this canyon down here.
He's one of our creatures attached to the stalactite. He now swims down after him. He was also an interesting design. So we've got crustacean legs with then fins up in the front. It's a very strange tongue that we're going to see here in a little bit.
The backgrounds here of the rocks were all shot as models, and then the creatures in the sub are CG and all the particles and all floating around. This was a difficult sequence to visualize how we could show everything, how you could show the tongue coming out in the cut and then being pulled into his mouth, and this part right here. This series of about 5 or 6 shots, we worked really extensively in the design of them so that the audience could understand it. And then even here, when we've got a big creature like that, how do we show something even bigger? And we did that with this final large creature here, really fading him way off in the distance. He's so far away from camera because he's so big, you can't, you hardly even see him very well. And that was all very intentional to make him look huge and massive, to go with the line, there's always a bigger fish.
Back to the Trade Federation is to keep the plot moving, but also to get this strand of the movie constantly being reminded that there are the bad guys out there, that the Trade Federation is trying to track them down, and keep the threat alive so you don't forget what the issues are, because our heroes are go for long periods of time without coming in contact with the bad guys.
The question came up in this scene, what to do about the door, since it had been damaged in the previous scene. So we decided just to have it open, as though it had been removed to be repaired or a new piece had been brought in.
Which they're about to approach right now, we call the Kolos creature. I don't know why that's named that way, but it is. And to give it some sort of justification, we sort of came up with the idea that it's like a mother, and it's in its cave here, and its babies have been hatched, and if you kind of look in the background here, you'll see them sort of crawling up a wall. There's one on the upper right going up a wall there, and you don't know that yet, but there are these things around them, and that's what's scaring Jar Jar. And when they finally turn the lighting on and the headlights on the ship here, it blasts right in the eyes of the mom, who's been sort of sleeping there, and wakes her up. And of course she thinks that her young are being attacked, and so she attacks this intruder and goes after him to protect the young.
This underwater sequence is full of spooks coming out of the closet and other cheap tricks, which are always fun to do in a movie. Every time they turn around, they come into a kind of a more difficult situation with adversaries, and so it kind of compounds itself.
Sequence to sort of pre-visualize with all the different angles that we had to do. So we spent a lot of time doing animatics on the sequence to be able to figure out how and for the audience to figure out how the cutting would work, where everybody was looking, how big this creature was, how small that creature was, etc. CG shot. We actually did, I think over a period of about 4 months working on that one shot.
The shot was a challenge. We designed it because it's the first time we actually see the entire army, and followed by this sequence where we see the entire town. These are completely digital shots. There's no reality to it at all. And trying to make those look real so that